Hey guys, Baruch here in Washington Square Park in New York City. You know, everywhere I look these days, I'm seeing people our age achieving really big things early on in life, which is great. Except for all the people who haven't become billionaires by the time they're 25, it can be a cause for concern. So here's the question. Are we in trouble if we haven't fulfilled our dreams right at the start of our lives? To get this question answered, I'm turning to Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman. He's a cognitive psychologist and an expert in human development. Scott, I feel like there's so much pressure on young people to succeed and to succeed way early on in their careers and in their lives. Are we screwed if we haven't become billionaires by the time we're 25?
Well, I think in a lot of ways you can be screwed if you do become billionaires by the time you're 25. If you're doing things for the wrong reasons, so if you're driven by what some psychologists call obsessive passion, sort of this obsessive compulsive need to achieve, that sort of drive, obsessive passion, actually lowers your chances of achieving in the long run, because it leads to burnout, it leads to a very unhealthy psychological mindset. What you need to do is cultivate a sort of harmonious passion, a genuine, this is not something you need to cultivate actually, this is something, with the good news, is something that you automatically have within you, as long as you find an activity that genuinely gives you joy and love. This is why listening to people and telling them and their expectations will get in the way of your ultimate success. So that should give people confidence that if you follow something that's internally driven, you have a higher likelihood of achieving.
If we look at people who have achieved greatness in their 20s, and then we look at people who have achieved greatness a little later on in life, is there a difference between that greatness that they've achieved? Can we compare them in any way?
You know, it depends. We can, in some certain fields, later bloomers in certain fields do have a very different personality characteristics. They do actually, so there is research showing that the younger you are, those tend to be the revolutionaries. So that does actually, the research does show that. Doesn't mean you can't be a revolutionary in a field if you start later, but there is a different sort of vibe to when you get into the field. There's a maturity level as well. So people who, like scientists who get into science later, are a lot more reserved and but you know, the way to counteract that, so that was what the psychological research tends to show. But with all this stuff, there are exceptions. If you maintain your that sort of revolutionary attitude, you kind of maintain, if you keep that up, which you can develop, no matter when you get into a field, you can bring that, you know, you can bring it into the field. You can
bring the revolution.
You can bring it. Absolutely. I don't want to, you know, there aren't limits. That's the problem with a lot of the psychological research, is it shows what tends to have happened. It's very empowering to know that you're becoming your own guide and listening to your own self. And probably the most empowering thing of all is knowing that if you build a life around who you already are and you don't have to change it all, how empowering is that, right? It's like, it changes everything. Like you go through every day like, oh, you know what? You know, that's not for you. Well, it's for me, you know? Like who cares? If someone looks down on you or whatever, you just have the mindset, oh, you're looking down on me because that's clearly not for you, you know, as opposed to letting it get to you. I think there's a lot of possibilities if we're open to it.
And that's the revolutionary mindset.
I think so, yeah.
Scott, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Investors, where does this fit into that overall picture?
Here at Venrock, I'm investing in a Fund 6. It's a $350 million fund. We are Series A investors.